of Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning. Welcome to Home For Me 2021 webinar. This is a one-of-a-kind event that is hosted by Ramkaran Contracting Services Limited, where we educate persons about the home ownership process and empower them to get on the property ladder. My name is Megan Cox, and I will be your host for this morning's proceedings. So due to the COVID regulations and for our own safety, we have decided to transfer our Home For Me, and we have transferred it onto a virtual platform. And so we welcome you. So before I introduce our speaker for this event, let me first introduce you to the company that is the powerhouse behind this webinar, Ramkaran Contracting Services Limited. Ramkaran Contracting Services Limited is a family-owned business that was formed in 2005 to produce indispensable construction services locally. In 2013, we have diversified to provide janitorial and maintenance services to the commercial and residential sector of Trinidad and Tobago. And within the last few years, we have expanded to provide design and build services to the private sector and land development services. All of this leads to one mission: to be a leader in construction, maintenance, janitorial, and property development services. We maintain safety and quality at the highest levels with competitive prices to both the local, public, and private sectors. So for today, we want you to interact with us. We want you to let us know that you are here and that you are enjoying the webinar. So for this particular event, we have developed a specific hashtag, and that hashtag is Home For Me. So we want you to take a picture and let us know that you are logged in. And you can do so by tagging us on Instagram and Facebook. The social media links are there on the screen for you. And when you tag us, you add the hashtag Home For Me. And we want to see you, and trust me, we will be seeing you, as we will be taking note for a special prize at the end. And to give you a little note and to give you a taste of what that surprise may be, we want to do a small giveaway, and that would be taking place before the formal aspects begin. So you would have been reminded, and we would have called you to thank you for signing up to be a part of this event, and to also look out in your emails to register for the Zoom link. And therefore, we want to recognize the first person who clicked on that link and registered. So just before we announce that particular person, can I get a drum roll, please? Or even a few emojis in the chat. I want to see some fire emojis, some clapping emojis, and all of that in the chat. Yes, I'm not seeing anyone in the chat. Come on. Right. So that person will be gifted the Dream It, Own It book, which is a guided journal to owning your dream home by our feature speaker, Ms. Patrice Ramkaran. So we want to acknowledge the first person who has registered, and that person is Miss Tara Gayadine. Is Miss Tara here? Miss Gayadine. Okay, so it seems as though Miss Gayadine is not here. So due to our specific rules and regulations for our giveaways. We want to pass on that specific prize toward the first person who has entered into our meeting room this morning. And this person has been waiting very patiently. So that person will be Mr. Gerald Hunt. Mr. Gerald Hunt, we'd like to congratulate you on your free copy of Dream It, Own It. And thank you very much for your patience and for waiting with us. And we hope that you enjoy our webinar.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we want to move along with that anxiety and further on with the achievement of our goals. So firstly, I would like to welcome one of our first speakers for this morning who has a track record of reaching exceptional and inspirational heights. And that person is Ms. Shellyan Akwi. Ms. Shellyan Akwi is a mom, wife, and serial entrepreneur. She's called the Possibility Coach, known for her passionate, inspirational, transformative style of coaching. An international business coach and vocal consultant with 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur. Shelley, as she's fondly called by, is the author of My Lifestyle Journal and Smash Belief Barriers, and a dynamic transformational speaker. She holds the position of director at Development Consulting Center, founder and managing director of the PRVM Performing Arts Academy, Wellness and Wealth Tribe, and the Shelley Akwi Coaching. The visionary behind the Picture of Possibility Women's Empowerment Tribe, Soul Sisters Women's Conference, Possibility Magazine, Savvy Sisters Magazine, and producer of the PRVM Awards show for 14 years. So help me introduce and welcome Miss Shelley Akwi, who will deliver on having the right mindset. Miss Shelley, are you there? Ms. Akwi, I'm not sure, but the participants and myself are not hearing you. Okay. Ms. Akwi, you will have to unmute yourself if possible. Okay. Hello? We are seeing you, however, we are unable to hear you at the moment. No, we are unable to hear you. I'm not sure if there's a possibility that you can probably um, log out of the meeting and try to reconnect the audio. Okay, so whilst we wait, we will do another draw for another book to one of our participants. In the meantime, we wait on Miss Akwi. So this book is a self journal for you to go ahead and build your dreams toward your dream home. So give me 1 second and we will begin the draw for that Dream It, Own It book.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Naila Ghani. I will be doing the draw this morning for this book. So we have our wheel with everyone who is present here. We'll do a spin. So the winner of our Dream It, Own It copy is Mr. Jiwan Durga. Mr. Durga, are you here? Is there Mr. Jiwan Durga? All right, so it appears that Mr. Durga isn't here. So what we'll do is do another spin on our wheel of names. So Miss Camille Ferry, are you here?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
All right. So you are the winner of our Dream It, Own It copy. So we will contact you with further information on how you can receive a copy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Megan.
Okay.
Amanda.
Thank you very much, Nyla. Is Miss Akwi there? I'm not sure if she's getting through with her audio at the moment. Miss Akwi? Ms. Shelley? Okay, so we'll move along from that aspect. Ms. Akwi will present later on. So we'll move right into the crux of the matter. We will be going directly to the feature speaker, in which I'm given the honor to introduce this morning, Ms. Patrice Ramkaran. Ms. Patrice Ramkaran is the founder and managing director of Ramkaran Contracting Services Limited, a company incorporated in 2005. Her knowledge in this field has been awarded through several academic paths. Her master's in entrepreneurial management, bachelor's in construction management, construction project management, BTech national and higher national diploma in construction,
Put the slide here, please.
respectively. As a certified project management professional with over 15 years experience in the construction industry, she served at Petrotrin, Mutual Parken, UK, CG Construction Services Limited, and NIPDEC. Patrice is a VV Grow Fellow with Vital Voices, an organization founded by Hillary Clinton to develop women leaders, and Share Blair Foundation for Women. On the other hand, she performs multiple duties such as a board member for both the Trinidad and Tobago Contractors Association and the Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago. Patrice also plays a vital role in the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce Facilities Development and Management Committee. In 2019, she created Home For Me, the event in the Caribbean, which empowers and educates aspiring homeowners about the home ownership process. With all this experience and knowledge, Patrice Ramkaran wishes to carry on her legacy and simple philosophy of dream it, own it, which is also the title of her first book. She needs no further introduction, and help me welcome Ms. Patrice Ramkaran.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cox and participants for such warm and hearty welcome. Please allow me a few minutes to share the history of how Home For Me was formed. About 5 years ago, I had my second child by C-section. It was mentally difficult, trying to be the best mom I can and maintain that work-life balance. You know, being an entrepreneur, although you're on maternity leave, you have typical working hours. Sometimes you are required, or most times I would say, required to work outside these hours. I remember strolling through Facebook and saw an advertisement with a seminar for moms, which I decided to attend. I needed that break, you know, that atmosphere and energy to recharge because I was mentally drained at that time. I attended this seminar and I know I was energized, I was happy, and I received what I came for that day and even more. You know, this seminar was great and I decided to sign up for coaching. I did not get the value I was expecting after investing in coaching. However, you know, I decided at least to use the knowledge shared and publish a book. And there's where Dream It, Own It, a guided journal towards home ownership was published. When my book was published, I decided to change the business strategy and vision by providing design and build services to the private sector because more or less, you know, I saw the need to provide these services because of all these horror stories that you would hear. But honestly, I never liked working on housing projects, so the profits are at times low, and managing the non-contractual changes and expectations of homeowners can be somewhat difficult to manage at times, as when there's not an understanding in terms of the scope of works and how to manage changes, etc. By nature, I always keep building on what I embark on. After I wrote a book, a passion developed to educate persons about home ownership goals. and their Home For Me was birthed, where it is we would have developed this seminar to educate and empower persons. So Home For Me would have been the first event in the Caribbean which educates persons of the home ownership process and empowers them to get on the property ladder. Today is our second Home For Me seminar, and I must say welcome. You're taking time from your busy schedule. We're going through this pandemic, and it could be daunting, but it's important to stick towards your goal. At Home For Me 29, we would have announced our first land development project, which is Royal Pine, which we are finalizing our approvals upon. And today I'd like to announce that we are working on developing strategies and partnership to finance these homes to this community and the other communities we intend to develop locally and regionally, because we understand that there's a need and there's a gap sometimes within our financial institution, as well as being able to acquire that home. My desire is simply to create a group of property owners who will endure that and ensure that their home ownership goal is achieved despite the obstacles, and would say, yes, I brought my first home. Most persons set a goal towards one house, but it's good that we set other goals towards having more properties, rental property, your dream home, your second home, etc. And it's difficult at times for us to want to set that goal, but due to the models of financing and real estate costs, we can be instrumental in changing this within our country. So if a group of persons like-minded like ourselves decide, here's what, we form an association, we work towards it, we liaise with the relevant authority to try to change some of those policies and instrumental to allow persons to get the financing they needed, look at the value in real estate, etc., we can achieve this together. So today, the objective of this webinar is to educate us about the framework of the home ownership process in Trinidad and Tobago. In addition to this, we would have our draw to the end, which is the draw, which will be house plan value at $12,000. So one of you all would be one of that lucky person today. I know we all are eager, but as I said, it's more or less we're going to discuss the framework of the home ownership process in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a lot to compile within an hour. As you would have seen in the past, we would have hosted a one-day event, and there's so much knowledge, so we are just going to discuss the framework here this morning. So the first step as it relates to home ownership is planning and changing your mindset. Any goal you want to set, whether it's home ownership, whether it's a car goal or an education goal, it all starts within your mind. And it's important that we change this mindset and start to plan towards it. Later on in this webinar, Ms. Akwi would share further as it relates to mindset and changing that mindset as it relates to achieving your goals. Step 2 would be to develop a budget. How are you going to achieve a goal when you haven't established a budget that you have to work with? And some persons may say, well, I can't develop a budget because I don't have any savings now. My income from my job is so little that I cannot save. And there's where step 1 comes into planning in terms of changing. So as we move into step 2, which is develop a budget. In order to develop a budget, what I would do, I would recommend that you get a financial assessment done by the financial institution. They would advise on the borrowing amount, your debt service ratio, etc. So let us just say, for example, you have a current mortgage for a property or a car or a small loan or even a credit card, whatever may be your current loan. They would now work up how much you are entitled to borrow. After the financial institution assess the value you can borrow, You now can now plan and make a decision. Here's what. I'm going to take a smaller mortgage now where I could buy a piece of land and maybe pay for that for the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever the duration may be. Or I would wait a little longer, pay off the other loans that I have, and embark on trying to attain a house or house and land, as the case may be. So when it is you get the financial assessment done, now it is you can now know what your borrowing amount is. I had an experience when I was buying a second property. They would have valued me to borrow X amount of dollars, and I would have made plans. And then when it was time to move on, the value would have decreased in terms of the borrowing amount because they didn't take into consideration this credit card at the time. So one of the decisions I would have made at that time is to reduce the credit card limit on one of my cards so that it allowed me a higher borrowing value. So the first step or substep from developing the budget is to get it done at the financial institution so that you know this is the amount you value for. And after further, you can develop different ways or strategy to increase your borrowing amount. Usually, when you visit the institution, they ask for a job letter, a pay slip. If you are self-employed, they may ask the financial statement, profit sharing evidence, of course, your ID, authorization to perform a credit check. Once this is established, as mentioned before, they will advise of the borrowing amount. And there you can decide, I have X amount to purchase a home, buy a piece of land, or construct your home, whatever stage that may be. Step 2 is acquisition of land, and step 3, is acquisition of the land and house. So more or less, you would know how much you are allowed to borrow, and you know what value now in terms of property you can go searching to. I would have met a few clients in the past where, for example, they are looking for land or house because they like it, it's an area they want to live, or this is the house they want to construct as it relates to their location. And when it's time to move forward, they weren't able to move forward because they didn't properly plan for this budget. So they end up searching for property at a high value, and their borrowing amount was a lower value. So, that could lead to a high level of disappointment. But as I mentioned in step 2, if you develop that budget, you know what value of land or house or property you are looking at. So prior to embarking on this step, as it relates to acquisition of land and houses, now that you know the value you can borrow, I recommend that you decide on your compromise. What are you willing to compromise? A lot of us sometimes don't like to hear that, but it's what are you willing to compromise? And as it relates to house, acquisition of land, chapter 8 in my book speaks about choosing your home location. Your house is a personal choice. There are 3 things which usually influence your choice of location. This could be your comfort, your convenience, and cost. And again, we would have captured a bit of cost in step 3. Comfort means different things to people. For me, personally, comfort to me, in terms of where I would want my dream home, is a view by the sea each morning. I could get up, walk out my conservatory room, and I walk to the sea. That is what real comfort would mean to me. Or some persons may like gardening. They may decide they want a large vast of land. So they may look for a piece of land in the countryside where you usually buy those pieces. And then convenience is what most of us, I believe, are looking forward to. And in terms of the factors that would choose your property. As it relates to convenience, what does, this is again a personal question. What convenience mean to you? For some people, do you want to live close or far from your relatives? Some persons want to keep far from their relatives for whatever reason, whereas some may want to remain close so that while they go to work, the grandparents can now look at the children, or if they have to go out, etc. They have that convenience, a close commute to their support system. Also, what schools my kids would go to. Some persons may want their children to go particular schools in South or North, etc. So this may be a factor, as well as the school they want the children to go to, as well as where they work. And of course, one last item as it relates to conveniences, what amenities and facilities are nearby. For example, you may want to live close to the mall, so you could simply jump in your car and within a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you are to the mall, supermarket, etc. So as it relates to choosing your land or property, your home, the three factors you want you to consider is comfort, convenience, and cost. And these are things you ask yourself, and that's why it's important to plan so that you can take into all these things into consideration. So prior to choosing or deciding on your convenience, your comfort, your cost, etc., these are a few questions you need to ask yourself prior to choosing your location, whether it's north, whether it's south, whether it's east or Tobago. And then the next question is, okay, I decide on all these things. How can I locate these properties? And there are different mediums used for locating property. And these are newspaper ads. The newspaper ads usually advertise properties. There are billboards. Sometimes you see where they are advertising land development. And we have all moved into a digital age and social media. There are a lot of social media pages advertising properties, as well as land developers, and of course, the real estate agents. When choosing, there are these options, but I would recommend at times this choice is yours in terms of the medium you want to use as it goes towards selecting your property. Because for me personally, I would have used a sign. I saw a sign advertising a property. I saw land developers advertising, as well as agents I would have used. However, one of the points I want you all to remember today, and it's very critical, is that whatever property you decide to embark on purchasing, as silly as it may sound to some who usually do it, there are people who would blindly walk with a bag of money and pay down for a piece of land and collect a receipt. I do not recommend that, but whatever you do, I would recommend to use an attorney to execute your agreement of sale. So you decide, you have your budget in terms of the value. You select your property. You decide, here what I want to buy this house and sell. What do you do next? You engage an attorney to execute the agreement of sale. Do not give anybody money like that without signing an agreement, because there are a lot of fraud happening in the country, and you don't want to be a victim after you saving up your deposit, your down payment, and you lose it because of poor practice. When the attorney is executing the agreement of sale, there are some essential points for us to take into consideration, or for an acceptance between the vendor and the purchaser. So basically, the vendor sells a piece of land for X amount of dollars, and so by Soira to John Jack. Of course, consideration is the purchase price, the deposit, the duration of the agreement, title search, description of the property. One of the things I would recommend, and whichever attorney you use to execute your agreement of sale, is to have the deposit held in escrow by the attorney, so that, let us just say, for example, that the title of the land is not good. You go to search and you realize the person that is selling it is not the real owner. At least this money is held in escrow by the attorney. This can be easily given back to you, opposed to giving it to the vendor, and after you sign the agreement, you make a down payment, he or she cannot be found. Again, your attorney would advise you better on this. We are just giving some guidance here in terms of the best practices. The other aspect is that ensure that there's a cadastral plan and the land is surveyed prior to entering an agreement of sale. So many of you probably asking, what is a cadastral plan? What it is to me to have the land surveyed. So there's a profession, there are companies that offer land surveying services. You want to ensure that this is done by a licensed surveyor. So when it is that you decide to embark on purchasing the property, ensure that there's the cadastral sheet. And when you visit the site, ensure that there are the boundaries showing where the access is to. If you are using the real estate agent in this case, they would ensure that these things are in place, that the cadastral sheet, they can identify the boundaries, etc. But if you are doing it on your own, these are little things to look out to. I've been in this field of work. I would have had 2 recent encounters where I visited a site to have a look at the site because we were interested with purchasing these lands. And there was a narrow access between 2 properties to access the land at the back. And the owner advised, well, this is the access they would have used for years. So I asked, can I have a view of where the boundaries are? He wasn't able to show me this. I asked him to view the cadastral plan. He said, well, you know, this land was surveyed how much years ago? I don't have access to the cadastral plan. So I made a decision there and I told him that I cannot go forward because there's no boundaries established in the site, in addition to no plan to show what it was shown. However, he decided to go forward. I would have advised him, if you need to get the sale, buyers will want to see the boundary of your lands. You cannot just come and say a deed have 5 acres, bounded by X, bounded by Y, and then there's no plan or to define this. But then look at it worst case, if it is you had decided to go forward with this, you may have had a situation where he said they have access between the 2 houses, and then one of the neighbors decide, here's what, this is we own this property, we cannot get access, you cannot be afforded access to this land. And they may decide to withhold access, which they are their legal rights to. However, you have a situation where they may use their advantage to say, sell the land at a higher value because you need this access more than them. So this is a few things to consider as it relates to acquisition of land. Decide on your comfort, your convenience, as well as ensure that there's an attorney to execute your agreement of sale and that there's a surveying plan. So step 4 is financing. Usually each financial, so more or less you would have bought your land, you would have signed an agreement of sale, etc. You would have got pre-assessed so that you know you're entitled to borrow this amount of money, and you will not be facing a disappointing position considering that you made a down payment and you cannot go forward to close the sale because you're unable to get financing. So planning is very important. So as I would say, usually each financial institute has their various procedures and policies. I will not recommend which financial institute to use, but just for today, we just cover in the framework of home ownership. I would recommend that you visit the various institutions, probably the institution that you are banking with, the credit unions, etc. You know, visit a few, see what they are offering in terms of interest rate, etc. And then you can do a careful assessment in terms of the financial aspect. So I recommend that, as I said before, I recommend that you visit the institution, you call them, send an email, and decide which option works for you best and which option works for you. And you can more or less decide which institution you would like to use. The other thing is that step 5, which is designs, architectural and structural designs. Usually, I don't know if anybody ever experienced this, but you walked into someone's home. I'm not sure if anybody willing to share this morning if they would have experienced a situation where they walk into someone's home and the entrance through the kitchen, the furniture is not placed properly because the living room too small. The kitchen and the bathroom that's not flowing properly. Anybody would have experienced this before? If you want to show by raise of hands. Right, anybody would have experiences? Yes, Vashti Ali said she experienced this, that you went, a lot of persons here, we had Deborah Stewart, Christian, they would have experienced that visiting somebody's home and everything that's queer, as the people would say. You know, your kitchen to your bathroom, it does have no flow. And this is simply because of poor space planning and flow. And then you may have to visit a house and the walls are painted in the right colors, the flow is good, you're walking, everything feeling nice and carefully designed. I'm not sure if anybody would have walked into somebody's home, or maybe probably your home is in that condition where it is everything is flowing good. Nobody would have experienced that. All right. So that is simply because they would have carefully planned the designs and the layout. Anybody want to find out, share who they think is responsible for designing the houses or properties? Anybody? All right, so usually an architect or a draftsperson, they are the one that is usually responsible for designs. The draftsperson, however, their courses sometimes is typically less expensive, is cheaper than an architect. So what the architect does, or the draftsperson, they bring the knowledge of planning regulation, space planning, layout, orientation, colors, and flow to a living space. So more or less, when you have a house that is spaced and planning and flowing properly, that is what the architect would bring to that is more or less their role in terms of bringing that knowledge. So when they design, they would take into consideration the planning regulations. I'm sure many of us would have heard of town and country. So they will not just place a room here, a room there, a room there, and everything end up like the first scenario, which I would have described previously. However, each one of us have a desire in terms of what our property or what our house you would want it to look like. And you would bring into this, you would bring your requirements to them to say, here's what. In my home, I want a big kitchen because I like cooking. Somebody else's home may say, I want a small kitchen because I am not too much into this kitchen. I will cook once every 2 weeks. I will buy out to collect food, etc. Some persons may say, I want a master bedroom, a big bedroom, because most of my times I am in my bedroom. And we see with this pandemic now, considering that most of us are working from home, sometimes we are just stuck in one area, and you notice a lot of persons may consider remodeling, redesigning, because they are home now, where they're placed where they are most now, because we are restricted to be inside. You notice the importance of how this comes into play. And that is what the role of the architect comes into play with. In addition, they work within the guidelines prescribed by the current laws for the sizing and the planning within the regulations. So there are different policies, guidelines as it relates to designs. However, we have the civil engineer. As it relates to the engineer, recently we would have had some time ago, we had hurricanes, they had earthquakes. There was the earthquake, I think about 2 years ago, where a lot of properties would have cracked. And the engineer, whether it be civil or structural, they are responsible to ensure that your home stand up and withdraw natural withstand natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes. The civil engineer or structural engineer ensure that there's no adverse effect due to settling. So sometimes when you construct a house for the first time, well, you construct a home, sometimes there's a bit of settling. And this is where the engineer's roles come in as it relates to design. However, as I mentioned earlier, the cost to get the work executed by the draftsperson is usually cheaper. And what I would recommend, if your draft person would have completed the structural civil engineering details for your house, that you have it assessed by the structural engineer. So you can take it to them as it relates to assessment, etc. So what they would do now is to ensure that your designs will not fail, your building would stand. And there's also an important part in engineering, which is value engineering. So sometimes draftsperson, they are custom designing things with standard designs. And sometimes you could use less reinforcement, smaller size of reinforcement, etc. And there could be savings to the homeowner. And there it is where the aspect of the civil engineer comes in as it relates to value engineering. However, if you decide to purchase a property, I recommend that you get it assessed by a civil engineer. I remember we were viewing some homes, property to purchase, and the house looked nice, painted well, molding's nice, etc. And being in the field and being into the profession, we realized that this house does have a lot of facade, meaning that all the post-structural, the structural, post-structural integrity of the house has been covered up by what we can see. So this is something to consider. We recommend that your plan is in conformance to the small building code as prescribed by Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. So for your knowledge today, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to share a plan. Some of you all may have seen it already, but at least if you embark on attaining your first property, your second property, at least today I want you to remember at least the different aspects of a plan, which is needed for submissions to statutory authority. So this is a location plan, which shows the location of the property. And this is what we call a site plan. The site plan more or less shows the square footage of the site, which are the boundaries here, and then the proposed building there. It shows your parking space, where you are going to pave, etc. If you're going to construct a pool, you have to show everything, how it's going to look flat as it relates to the site plan. And this is the ground floor plan, or a floor plan. It could be first floor, ground floor, etc. Usually, this is where I would have spoke before about space planning, layout, etc. When your draftsperson draw your plan, more or less you would see where the living room will be, where the kitchen will be, the dining room. On the ground floor plan, you would see the walls here. You would see the dimension, so what would be the overall dimension of the building, where the windows would be placed, etc. Where you're going to put your sink in your kitchen, where you would want your entrances, etc. So this is where the floor plan shows typically the layout of your house that you're going to build. And well, this obviously was a first floor plan. This a first floor plan here as well. So this house is 2 stories. So we had a ground floor plan and a first floor plan. And then we have the roof plan, which shows the design of the roof, how the roof going to be. It will also show. It will also show the details as required. So all these details is important in terms of design and constructing to withstand hurricanes, earthquakes, etc. And then you have the elevations here, which shows how your front of your building will look, how the back of the building would look, side, etc. So there's where planning come into play. It may cost a little now, but it saves you the headache in terms of when you finish construct, all of a sudden you don't like this, you don't like that, you want to change this, you want to change that. And it's a much higher cost now in terms of remodeling. So it's important to sit down. You decide what you want in your home, what are your requirements, what you can live with, what you cannot live with in terms of size, etc. And there, when you hire a draftsperson, they will come now, or the architect, to incorporate your requirements in reference, in alignment to the regulations, the planning code, the building codes, etc., as well as the aesthetics. So it's important. When you see this in the drawing now, you can now tell the architect, here's what I think I would want to change this. I don't like how it's looking. And there's also 3D drawings where you can actually see how it would look when it's constructed. So these are the elevations as it relates to the architectural plan. And now we move to the structural drawings. And this is where the complications happens at times, because you can't read the plan, and sometimes these builders tend to take advantage of persons by using shortcuts, and you, the homeowner, may not know. So this is the foundation plan. This is what goes underground. This is what keeps your house standing up. This foundation is a pile layout foundation. This is the framing plan. So although you are constructing your walls, it's important that you reinforce the corners of your walls so that it can stand against earthquakes, etc. And we have the beam plans, where it shows the size of the beam, the reinforcement placing, etc. And then you have the details again as it relates to beams, wall stiffeners. And then you have foundation details in terms of what depth, what length, what size, and the section details. So this would show in terms of the height of your buildings, what it looks, if you slice the building horizontally or you slice it vertically. Right, again, another cross-section details. You have details for stairs. So as simple as a stair may be, we may just look at the stairs up, down, up, down. These stairs have to be reinforced as well so that it stands up against the earthquakes and disasters, etc. And then for plumbing now, you would have the aspect in terms of your plumbing designs, your electrical designs in terms of what switch goes there, where we place it, etc. So just to show you all the layout for the drawing so that we have a appreciation as to what house plans, that we have appreciation for what house plans look like, so that we are not too confused. So after we have our designs done, what do? Do we just build? No, we just cannot go and build. Step 6 is the statutory approvals. Anybody familiar with statutory approvals? Anybody familiar or heard that they need to get approvals? Right. So before we, okay, great, I'm seeing the thumbs up. So before we move into statutory approvals, Ria had a question. What about the adverse effect of flooding? Does the civil engineer also see about this in addition to the earthquake, etc.? Yes, the engineer, they would see about it before, as well as the designs. So just to give a quick, I'm going back up a little further. Now let's say, for example, you decide to purchase a house in a recent housing development. Before that development is approved by the statutory authority for construction or to commence construction, they have designs to be done, which the civil engineer would design the drain size, the road size, etc. And they would take into consideration all of the rainfalls within that particular catchment area, as well as history as rainfall, etc. So yes, the engineer consider this as it relates to housing projects designs, as well as for your house as well. Let's say your area wasn't approved, or the drains that they have there it cannot hold the capacity, they would take in consideration the size of the drain for your site. However, there are certain catchment areas that is prone for flooding. So for example, I remember we recently would have submitted to a client for approval. And within that area of central Trinidad, there was a catch pit that was known as a catchment area due to the Caroni River being nearby. So we had to remove the entire ground floor for that area so that in case of flooding, their house is not affected. Somebody, Rachel, would have shared that an architect works to bring an owner's requirement to life. And we'd have had some other points as it relates to that. So we captured the flooding. So the other part, which is the second to last process, is statutory approvals. And usually the approving body is, as most of you all may or may not know, is town and country. So I would present this in terms of question. Why do I need to go to town country planning in the first place? So I would have met persons, they would have said, here's what, I don't need any planning permission because I'm billing out of cash. I don't need to do this. And sometimes the bank, most persons would adhere to it simply because it's a requirement by the financial institution. However, this morning, I want to reiterate that we need to go to town country planning in the first place because it is required by law. And the Town and Country Planning Act empowers the minister to regulate all forms of development within Trinidad and Tobago. So if you decide you have a parcel of land and you want to develop it to sell into lots, as the case may be, or you want to develop it by houses, any construction or development in the country has to be regulated because what we build now, it may not affect us today. So for example, we build illegally, we build however we want to build it, but we may leave, this generation may leave, and the generation after us will have to live with what we created. So we have this body which regulates the development. So I would adhere to everyone here today. Please ensure that we get the necessary, we apply for the approvals because it's required by law, is the right thing to do. So planning permission is required prior to commencing any plans of development. So your other question may be, what type of proposal for planning permission do I submit? And let us just say, for example, you have a house, you may have inherited a house, or you have your parents give you permission to construct an extension at the back of their house. If there's an addition to an existing structure, we need planning permission. And if you are going to construct a new building, a new home, a new property, you need planning permission. So you may be a person saying, you see this, I don't think I want this headache of going through all these steps as a design, approvals and all this headache. You would skip all this step and go to step 3, land acquisition, property acquisition, and say that, and say, I just want to buy a house and live in it because I am not able with the stress. But when you purchase in, it's also important to consider if this house has approvals, and there's a way that could be done for free from the Town and Country Planning Division, where members of the public can verify that the property they intend to purchase is approved for, or what is the status of the land, if it's approved property, if it's not approved, etc. So making a submission to Town and Country, once you decide on a design, the other step is to make a submission. There's 2 types of approval, final and outline. So when you receive your approvals, the application will be forwarded to the regional corporation, and you get a permit prior to starting work. And upon completion, the inspector visits to ensure what you build is in accordance to the approved plan. So you cannot say, here's what, while constructing, I want to add on a next room. I want to make this room bigger. You will not get your completion certificate. And I reiterate the importance of planning so that when you have the final product or in process of attaining the final product, it's important that you get it. It's important that you plan before so that you can attain it. All right. So the other aspect as it relates to approvals. So sometimes you apply for approvals and you are refused. Has anybody here ever applied for statutory approvals and they were removed? Anyone has experienced that? Anybody? No? All right, so basically, if it is your plans, you apply for approvals, and there it was refused, it doesn't mean this is the end of the world. You can't go forward with it. There's recourse. So let us say you decide to embark, you make your application and it was refused for development, for planning, it was refused planning permission. You now can you could go into the authority. Karen would have said she would have to make some change to the items of plan, right? So you have that option to go in to make the changes to the plan and resubmit it to get the approval. That is one aspect. But then sometimes there are properties that does not fall under the planning permission, which was since I think in the 70s, 80s, around there. So there's recourse where you can apply by making appeal to the, you can apply by making appeal to the advisory town planning panel. So usually once they have this refusal from statutory authority, town and country within your region, you can appeal to the advisory town planning panel. And I could share a little story about this, why dreams are important, why vision is important. I remember my first property is a piece of land in Mayaro area, and the developer would have, well, I wouldn't say developer, the owner decided, here's what, I have these acres of land, I could just get a surveyor to subdivide it, and I could just sell these lots without approvals. I mean, at the time you were young, you're eager to own something, and I would have bought the land, and at a very young age, I would have paid little by little by little every month. I remember having my daughter at the time, and every month on a Sunday, I would have driven to make payments, monthly payments towards this property. And I was encouraging the developer, the owner of the land, let us try to develop this land. You could apply for it to develop, and he was like, I'm not able to go through this, etc. So he did not want to do it, obviously. And what I did, when I applied for approval for this particular plot of land, it was refused. I made an appeal to the advisory panel. After 8 years, this year actually, no, well, it could be a little longer, but after 8 years, we are now in the process of getting final approvals for the designs that we intend to build there, and that drawing that I would have shared first would have been the design for that property. So the point is, you may not, if your drawing is refused, you could apply for recourse through that area in terms of requesting for a change of use. It could be a long, daunting process, but as in any goal in life, perseverance is the key, one of the keys to success. And the last step, which is construction, as I said earlier this morning, we are just discussing the framework of home ownership. We don't want to bore you all by this. I don't want to bore you all by this talking, because there's a lot to capture. And the last step, we have so much steps before this last step, which is construction. you get your plans approved, you get the financing, and now you're excited because you're going to own your first home, your second home, whatever property it is. And this is the most stressful aspect towards homeowners. And this is why we decided to change our reach in terms of our target market by providing the design and build services, because it can be stressful. I will not go into more this morning in terms of showing what is the foundation, substructure, etc. We're not going to talk about the actual process, but I'll recommend a few pointers to consider when you reach this stage, which is supposed to be the exciting stage for a lot of us, but sad to say, it is sometimes the most stressful stage or experience in your life. So the first thing I would recommend is to ensure that you have a contract executed prior to commencing work. So as I mentioned before, do not just hire somebody, a contractor, a builder, whoever it may be, and just pay them a down payment to start. It is important that you have a contractual agreement. As I say, you can get an attorney to execute this, or you can draft it up. You might know somebody to draft it up, but once it's signed and witnessed, it can work. Ensure that you have a contract executed. And this contract would state your payment terms and conditions. A lot of builders or tradesmen typically want, sometimes request for a high down payment. I do not recommend that. I recommend you pay, if it's a 10%, or you pay by phases. So for example, if they have the foundation to construct, you pay at the end of the foundation. When they have blocks to erect, you pay at the end of the blocks to erect. If you're hiring somebody that is reputable, they should be in a position to maintain their cash flow to be able to execute these works and pay their staff, materials, etc., and collect that payment to the end. But as I say, ensure that you have a contract executed prior to commencing work, and your attorney can always guide you further as it relates to the details. The other aspect I'd recommend is to conduct reference checks. Ensure that you contact someone they would have constructed a home for, they would have done finishes for in the past, in terms of how it's done. Ensure that it's not a family member or friend, because obviously, you know, Trinidadians could be Trinidadians at times. And as I would have captured in the structural design, sometimes or most times, the persons that are not in the field do not understand the details, or they do not understand, they're unable to read the blueprint drawings or the designs, which is fine because they were not trained in the field. However, I would recommend that you hire a project manager or somebody to oversee the work to ensure what they build is what they design. Because sometimes these guys always have other recommendations. You know, you could do this instead of that, you could use this instead of that, and whatever, you would get that. And you not having the knowledge or experience would typically lean on their knowledge, and they could give bad advice, which you would feel years after. And obviously, we recommend using a reputable contractor, and there's where it would integrate into the reference checks. So I want to say thank you this morning. I know it's a lot to chew, but I hope you capture the couple points that I reiterate, because it's critical towards your success of home ownership, property ownership. Right? I want to thank you all for your time, and I will now hand over to Megan Cox.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramkaran, for your presentation and for sharing your knowledge of the homeownership the process. And I am very sure that a lot of us have learned quite a lot. And even if you've known a lot about the process, you must have picked up on something new. And I could see in the chat, everyone is just commending you on your presentation. Very informative, very important points that you have produced. And we all just cannot wait to embark on our journey. So we want to thank you once again. So now we just want to take one step back and to try and see if we can get back onto Ms. Shelley Acqui, and let us try to see if we can get her on the screen.
All right.
Ms. Acqui,
So let's see if you guys are hearing me this time.
Yes,
we are hearing you.
Still not hearing me.
We are.
We are hearing you.
Wonderful.
Right. So let me just do the first part of the introduction for persons who may have missed the introduction previously. So Ms. Shelley-Ann Acqui is a mom, wife, and serial entrepreneur. She's called the Possibility Coach, known for her compassionate, inspirational, transformative style of coaching. An international business coach and vocal consultant with 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur. Kelly has, as she's fondly called, is the author of My Lifestyle Journal and Smash Belief Barriers, and a dynamic transformational speaker. So we would like to bring you to the stage, Ms. Acqui.
Thank you so much. And good morning to everyone again. Well, technology has failed us. It's a bittersweet pill that we always have to deal with. Unfortunately, Zoom refused to speak to our microphone system, so we had to switch out an entire system and start all over again. So I want to thank my team, Sunlight Studios, for assisting me with that. This morning, I want to say a very warm welcome to everyone here, and I'm really excited for those of you who are homeowners and those of you who are contemplating becoming homeowners. I want to greet Patrice. Thank you so much for inviting me to address your community.
It's a pleasure.
And for everyone that is here tonight, this morning, I want to say good morning and thanks for having me. Well, you all did a really great job introducing me. Sometimes when I hear my introduction, I'm like, is that me they're speaking about? Well, my journey is very simple. I don't want to take too much time. We started both my husband and I started our journey very young. We had an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. We were not financially well off or anything like that. We were very simple people, young people. We didn't have money or anything like that. And my story is kind of unique because and I'll give you a little summary of it, can't give you all of it, but our story is very simple. I remember having $700 in my bank account and wanting $1 million house. And that is the thing that makes my story unique. And today I want to just give you all some encouragement with regard to the mindset when you want to accomplish something in life. Don't listen to persons who don't believe in your desire to own a home. And certainly while you have to keep your financial situation in mind, don't allow that to totally discourage you or make you think that you cannot attain home ownership. With some education and some guidance, most persons can find a way to own a home. So my husband and I did not have the money to build our house. I had $700, and long story short, I went to him. I told him I want a house because the landlord is kicking up a fuss and they are getting set to raise the rent again. I was not comfortable. The place was beautiful, but the space was small because now I had 2 children. We moved in there with 1 child. And I told him, I'm ready for my house. And I said, I prayed because I'm a praying woman. And I said, Lord, the next time I move, I want to move into my own home. So that's where it all started. It started with a desire that moved to a prayer. And then we started putting actionable steps in place. My husband said to me, we drove to the piece of land that we had. And he said to me, well, we are going on your faith because I don't have that type of faith. And I said, okay, I believe that it's time for us to do this. We were young and we had no collateral, so that was an issue. But we made an investment and we moved forward to build our house. Fortunately for us, one institute, after a while, said yes, and the journey began. Now, I want to say this. I will always speak about mindset and prayer when you are moving forward in any major decision, because when we started this journey, I had to adapt the mindset, as well as my husband, that we have to prepare ourselves mentally for this journey. We have to embrace delayed gratification, very, 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 very clear planning, and a clear understanding of what we wanted, and we needed to seek advice. When we started that journey, we started 13 years prior with a 3-bedroom flat house, traditional Caribbean home. And eventually that plan was squashed because with prayer and with guidance and education, we were able to build an upstairs and downstairs, almost over 5,000 square foot house versus this little house that we were going for. So sometimes you have to give time and speak with someone knowledgeable like Patrice, so that you are able to design the home that will serve you. Now, when we were building the home, we had to sacrifice. Building a house is a big investment, and if you're not coming from wealth or riches, you have to plan and you have to sacrifice. So getting into the mindset that during the home construction or the purchasing of a home, there are going to be some personal things that you may have been accustomed to indulging in that you may have to pause on. So my husband and I, we cut out all recreational stuff, all unnecessary spending. We budgeted very tightly and we stayed very focused. The other thing that we had to get very meticulous about was the contractor that we chose, because we did not have money to play with. As I said, we were very young. So getting a contractor that one can relate with your personality, your communication style, as well as very knowledgeable about the building and the construction industry was a huge help. I learned some things along the way that if I have to build ever again, there are some mistakes that I would avoid. I changed my mind a lot during the construction process, which frustrated both my husband and the contractors. But both parties were gracious with me and accommodating, and I eventually got what I wanted. So I would say to you, before you start planning your building, be very, very, very clear as to how do you want this home to serve you. What would be the construct, the size of rooms? Patrice covered all of this, but this is something that's very, very important, because when this house is built, you have to live in it. And you don't want to be in a situation where you have to be constantly remodeling and upgrading because you started the process without clarity. So spend some time getting clear on what do you need this house to provide for you. I came from a very small home, and then when I got married, we moved into very small apartments. So one of the things that I knew that I did not want was any small spaces, narrow corridors, or anything like that. I wanted everything to be large and everything to be spacious. I know that that's an emotional need, but it was a need nonetheless. So if at all you can cover all the needs that you have, whether it is you want to have a business in the home, how many cars do you want, all of these things you have to be very clear about. And then you have to have some grace with the process, because things won't always work out the way that you anticipated to work out. And tempers may flare and emotions may rise. I cried a couple times, but it was really about not being prepared mentally for this journey because I had no one to direct me, right? So getting your mind and your emotions intact and be very aware of yourself is going to be part of the process, and it's going to help you to enjoy it a little bit more. So deadlines may be missed. Sometimes contractors overestimate and underestimate. You have to be prepared for all of this. The other thing that I would say to you guys, the journey is a beautiful journey, but if you don't have the right mindset and attitude towards the process, it can be a horrible experience. So it really is up to you how that experience turns out based on how ready you are for this journey. When you are communicating with your contractor, do so with respect and humility and understanding that that person is more knowledgeable about this process than you. So even though you may want what you want, you still have to seek guidance because sometimes the things that we want isn't structurally possible. It's not safe, right? I remember when I was building my garage, I did not want any pillars in my garage. And I was back and forth with the contractor about that. I was really upset about it. And then he said, well, we need to support the weight of the house and it's posts that you have to do this with. So if you don't put the post, then we have to find a different way to build this garage. When I went to my husband, the option was not one that he wanted to take. So I had to take a deep breath and accept that there is a post entering my two car garage, right? The other thing I would say is have a good relationship with your contractor. So even when things don't go well, they actually are very, very accommodating when you have a good relationship with them. Tell them your dream, tell them, you know, how you feel about owning the house, tell them what the rooms mean to you. And these things make a difference with how, well, my experience, how things turn out. And if you want to make adjustments within the confines and the restrictions of your plan, which is something you have to stay within, they will accommodate you. The other thing is I would say is stay alert. Don't just have a contractor or somebody building your house and you're not paying attention. Pay attention, be present, ask questions, challenge things, know who's on your property, right? If you don't, then things will happen and then it may be too late to fix, right? So I was on my property every single day. Most persons did not know that I was the owner. They thought I was working alongside the contractor and it was some foreign person who was building a house. Eventually, when the house was up, then they realized that I was the owner of the home. All right, the other thing I would say is, when I said be clear with your communication, design based on needs and desire, know exactly what you want. So do research, have conversations with your family. I knew that I wanted my kids to have their own room. I thought about when they grew up, what I wanted, how I wanted the house to serve. That's another thing. Don't think about your now only. Think about your future. When your kids grow up, suppose you want to do other things in your life. Will this house still serve you 10 years after? Right? So that's one of the things that I particularly did. Some of the benefits is that you get to design a home the way you want versus renting or living at others. You get to design and decorate a home that is all about you. The other thing would be you also get to utilize this house to build wealth. And this was something that we entered into homeownership not thinking about, but eventually our house became a tool, an asset that we could use to acquire more property. So that is something that was really exciting. So having one home turned into having multiple properties because the home was now collateral for more property. So that's another wonderful thing about having your own home. Now, the mindset around that is you will have mortgages, so you still have to manage your finances because now you have more properties to you are financially responsible for. And finally, managing maintenance. I think for most persons that I talk to who own homes, it's things go wrong and there is no landlord to call this time. That was very sobering. So anything that goes wrong, it's up to you. So what I recommend people do is when you own your home, have a budget that is set aside for maintenance, for upgrades, for renovations and stuff like that. So when the need arises, you don't feel strangled or stressed to upgrade or maintain. The house requires attention and money beyond construction. And if you keep that in mind, you will have the understanding and you will not be bothered and flustered when a pipe goes off or the pump stop working or the AC stop working or there's a crack after an earthquake or you want a room that's larger or something goes because something always, or the septic tank, something something is dysfunctional and you have to get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $12,000 to get things done. So I would say have a budget that is geared towards maintenance. If you save a little at a time, it accumulates into a large amount. And when something happens, you have the finances to attend to it without feeling flustered or frustrated. And finally, I would like to tell you, enjoy your building process and enjoy your home. I was blessed to walk into my home at age 32, and I have been a homeowner since. I'm heading to 50. So having a house has been a big, big blessing for me. And it has also shown me that no matter where you are in life, no matter what persons say about your situation, no matter what is your history, and no matter how much money you have in your hand right now, your dream to own a home is very possible. My husband and I did not have the money to build a home. I had $700 and he had a couple $1,000. And we built $1 million home back then. Of course, it's worth more now. But if you would have looked at us in our early 30s and $700 and a couple $1,000, you would say, well, it's impossible for you to own $1 million house or a house that costs $1 million to build. So don't check yourself out. Don't count yourself out. Look for options, educate yourself, get into communities with people who have built homes, get a great contractor. I mean, Patrice is very detailed with information. She's very concerned about your success as a homeowner and she guides well. So I would recommend Patrice. But I'm saying, even if you don't choose Patrice, get someone who has the same traits, all right? So enjoy your home ownership journey, enjoy the research, enjoy looking at 1 million homes before you build your home, look at a lot of HGTV and get into home construction books, get into consultations with your contractors or events like this. And when you start building, maintain the mindset that this is a blessing and you want to maintain your joy so that the journey is a pleasant memory. And when you own your home, utilize it as more than a home if you desire to acquire more wealth or to earn more property or whatever else you want to do. So I want to say thank you for having me. Having a home is a blessing and it's a tool. All right, so bless you guys. Thank you, Patrice, for having me. I hope everything that I said touched someone, encouraged someone, believe in yourself, go after your dream. It is possible regardless of where you are right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Akwi, for speaking about having the right mindset and for sharing your own journey. And we would like to encourage the participants to pay attention, and you can visit Miss Shelley's website for more information of her services and find out more about her. So we have listened to two very inspiring women, and they have given us a ton of information, and we are very much over time right now. We thank you very much for being patient and for being able to manage through the technical difficulties and staying with us. So we have a question, well, two questions from Ms. Talia already, and we want to pose it to Ms. Patrice. So she asks if you mentioned the hiring of a reputable contractor. Should they only be sourced through the Contractors Association?
Okay, thanks for your question, Talia. The Contractors Association is one medium which you could use for sourcing a contractor. Yes, you could refer to them. I sit on the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Contractors Association as well. Usually you could call the office and the general managers would recommend contractors who falls within the micro and small categories. In addition to this, you could also, you may get recommendations from persons who would have built homes already and they would have used contractors. You could also get referrals this way, and you could even come to us as well. But as I mentioned in the presentation, it's critical to get the reference checks done and that you have a contract in place. So should there be any breach in contractual agreements, you have some form of legal redress.
Okay, and the other question from Ms. Talia would be the process of building on your land is it significantly different if you are building a single family home versus a multi-use structure?
So
would that process be different?
Sure. So each land development or each area has different planning policies in place. So for example, there may be a land development where the developer would have gotten approvals for land, may have gotten approvals to construct single family units. So what that means is that you are not allowed to build multi-family units. There are other areas that is zoned for single family units. So what I would recommend is that if you decide to embark on, if you want to construct a multi-family unit in a particular area, there's the outline approval application that you can make, where it is you just state on the form that this is before submitting plans and stuff like that. So more or less you show the location plan, you complete the form requesting for outline approval to build multi-family units. And based on that response from town country, they would advise how much units you're allowed to build, etc. So it will vary depending on the area the land is located. And what I would recommend is requesting for the outline approval first, so that you do not waste time and money drawing plans that may be refused. And as I mentioned earlier, if the design is refused, you can always file for an appeal.
Okay, great. And another question, we are running a bit out of time, so we may not be able to go through all of the questions in the chat. However, we'll try to go as many as we can in the short space of time that we have, because we don't want to encroach on everyone's time frame. So the other question that we have is, just 1 second, the chat is going so fast. Okay, so are steel framed houses better than conventional brick or mortar houses?
I would say it's better. I would say there's advantages using steel frame opposed to traditional concrete houses. One is the time. typically constructing using steel frame is faster. Quality control, you know, that each member, thickness, size, etc. is the same. So I would say both are good in terms of not that this one is better, but it's just the advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages with steel frame is the time for completion. So there may be a bit of savings dependent, as well as the quality control.
Okay, another one in the chat. Would one need approvals in order to renovate their home, would you need approvals in order to renovate your home if you are just doing additions?
As I mentioned in the presentation earlier, we need approvals once it's a new building or if there's an extension to an existing building. So if there's an extension in terms of rooms, etc., we need approvals because it is required by law. However, if it's changed to the facades, let us just say, for example, you decide to remodel the inside and change tiles, etc. I think there was a question that asked about that. And finishes, no approvals is required with regards to that. If you decide on the outside, you want to change windows, etc. So approvals is needed only for new building or extension, more or less changing the actual layout.
And the final question is, if you are renting land, should you know about the boundaries, and if any, you want to build on, if you want to build on the rented land, should the approvals be done through the landowner or the person renting?
Well, I wouldn't be able to comment much as it relates to rented land. What I would recommend is you check the rental agreement. I'm not sure what the rental agreement states. I assume that it doesn't state anything within the agreement who is responsible for approvals or not. So what I would do, I'd recommend that you engage the attorney to seek clarification as it relates to responsibility of landlord and the renter.
Okay, great. So I know persons may have some more questions for us. However, we will allow those questions. You could pass it on to Ms. Patrice. You could send us an email at info@ramcrancontracting.com, and we will deal with these specific queries because I know the time is running very quickly. And you can also book a free consultation with us, and you will get very in-depth information targeted specifically to your concern and for your structure and everything that you need in particular. But you can continue asking the questions in the chat and we will respond to them accordingly as much as we can. So right now, we just want to go into the giveaway aspects, into the giveaway segments. And we just wanted to recognize one of our partners for the homeowners Home For Me webinar 2021. And that would be one of our real estate agencies, step-by-step consultancy services. We just wanted to award them with a co-branded digital billboard. And we would like to say thank you very much for all your support and for joining us on this venture today. So we'd like to present you with this service from us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am humbled. And I would also take the opportunity to thank Patrice and team. This has been a fantastic journey, fantastic presentation. And I think I can speak for everyone in saying that certainly whether we are a homeowner or whether we're considering to have another home investment or personal, it really has been an informative session and one that I trust that the recording will be shared because this is something that can, as we continue on our home journey, it really, really would be beneficial. So I want to thank RCSL Contracting, Patrice and team, fantastic presentation. All the best to you and your team, and thank you for the co-branding digital billboard. Thank you so much. on behalf of my team.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much once again. So we are going directly into the giveaways for the participants, and we would like to thank you for being a very attentive and engaging audience, although we have been going over time. And we mentioned previously in the webinar of the hashtag, and for you to tag us within the hashtag Home For Me, and we will be looking at it. So we wanted to recognize the person that used the hashtag first, and we wanted to provide that person with the Dream It, Own It book by Miss Patrice Ramkaran, and that person is Miss, can I get some drum rolls or some emojis in the chat? Come on, we need to see the excitement that we have right now. Right, nice, nice, beautiful, right. So that person is Miss Paige Ford. We'd like to congratulate Miss Paige Ford for participating and for telling us that she was here and tagging us on social media. Is Miss Paige Ford here?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We will get in contact with you and where we can provide the book to you. So you can send us a message in the direct messages and we will get in contact with you. And we also have some more giveaways in terms of we are giving away 15% off of our design services. And we will be conducting that draw, and we would like to welcome Ms. Naila Ghani in order to conduct that draw and for her to present that person.
Hi, good morning, everyone again. So Ms. Cox would have asked everyone to tag us on social media with the hashtag Home For Me on Instagram stories as well as Facebook. So we have the first tag on their Instagram story. We have Charlene Young Griffith. She is the winner of a 15% off design services voucher. Ms. Charlene Young Griffith, are you here?
Yes, I am, Charlene.
Charlene, sorry. All right, congratulations. You've won the 50% design voucher. We will get in contact with you. So moving on, we have our final grand draw for a free house plan valued at $12,000. So I am transferring everyone, participants, to our grand prize reel. So let me just share the screen. So we're gonna do our spin for our grand prize. So Cinda Marie Fraser, you're the winner of our free house plan valued at $12,000. Miss Cinda, are you here? Ms. Fraser? So it appears that Ms. Fraser isn't here. So one of the requirements is that participants are to be at our webinar, present at the webinar. So what we'll do is have another spin at the wheel. All right, so we have a Nicholas Taylor. Nicholas Taylor, are you here?
I'm here. I'm here.
I pray, I swear, I pray. Oh my God.
Congratulations, Nicholas.
Wow.
Oh my God.
You won our free house plan valued at $12,000.
Thank you. Thank you. That's in belief, right? I never won anything in my life, but yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for being here. Thank you for attending. I'll pass it on to Megan.
All right, congratulations, Mr. Taylor. Congratulations to all our participants and to all our winners. And we would like to thank you for being very attentive, for being here with us. And just a reminder for you to book your consultancy with us. And the link was in the chat. I'm not sure if we can get it back there, right? So you can book a consultancy with us, and to get more information, you could also send us an email at info@ramkaran contracting service. Ramkaran, info@ramkarancontracting.com. So you can book your consultancy, and you can also order a copy of Mrs. Ramkaran's book, Dream It, Own It, and you can do so by sending a WhatsApp or calling us at 299-5142. And you can order today and you will get it specially for $100. So you can do all of that right now, as we are giving away a lot of services right now for you to be a part of the home ownership process. And we have come to the end of this morning's proceedings. And I am given the honor to share a heartfelt thank you to Mrs. Ramkaran, Ms. Akui, for all of their insightful presentations, to the board members for their support and their input into the webinar, and the administrative staff, nonetheless, for all of the technical support and the background assistance. And we would also like to thank you, the participants of Home For Me 2021 webinar. And we look forward to hearing from you and working with you to make your home ownership dreams a reality. So don't forget to send us a message and book your consultancy. And thank you very much for being here today. Have a great day.